Welcome to Talking Hospitality with the Recruiter Guys. I'm Gary Turner.
And I'm Kerry Stinson.
And today's guest is Wade Beckman from Bryan College Station. Hello, Wade. Welcome aboard. And how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Welcome, Wade.
So I guess what I'd like to do is what we'd like to do right now is introduce you to our listening audience and our viewing audience, and kind of tell us about yourself and how you got from Houston. Well, I know you went to A&M.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of like a homecoming to you to go back there. You probably know everybody. And then you, for a little bit of your time, you got out of the business, which I think everybody that's been in this business has gotten out of the business. But for some reason, to quote The Sopranos, they pulled you back in.
Right.
So so just kind of update us on what's going on in your world and how things are in the industry in College Station.
Okay. You want me to start with background?
Sure.
Okay. So I did graduate from Texas A&M, and I started my restaurant career with Bennigan's in San Antonio. And I got promoted back to Bryan College Station, which was just out of left field. I thought it might be back for an Aggie game and that kind of thing, and moved back here and became general manager of a Bennigan's here, a very high volume Bennigan's. Kind of came kicking and screaming, and then a couple of years later, got promoted up the food chain and kind of left kicking and screaming. My wife and I said, if we could ever come back to Bryan College Station, we would. Our first son was born here, so left there, finished my career with Bennigan's and worked for Schlotsky's Deli back when you and I did some work together on recruiting and things.
Right.
Director of operations. Went from there to a small burrito chain, was an equity partner in Houston, and then did take a little step outside of restaurants, mainly due to some family challenges. My father was terminally ill, and it was just something I needed to do to kind of get him through it. But the second I could, we found this little restaurant, Shipwrecked Grill in Bryan College Station, and we moved back here in 2009 and opened Shipwreck. Then we turned around and opened the restaurant I'm sitting at, Amico, Nave, which means friend of the ship in Italian, kind of loosely translated. And it's literally right across the street. We had the opportunity to purchase this building, which is great. And then 2 years later, we opened Admiral Catering. We do full service catering through the Bryan College Station area, about $500,000 to $750,000 in catering a year. And then 3 years ago, we opened Third on Main Kitchen, our third restaurant, and it's in downtown Bryan. So definitely a restaurant guy through and through. Have the full sickness and everything.
Say it again.
I said I have the full sickness and everything.
So and these were all open pre-COVID, so you had a good established clientele.
Our last one just over a year and a few months into COVID. So it was, I guess, a little bit more of a challenge revenue-wise. It's also in a downtown area. Even though Bryan's not a huge town, there's always those challenges, and downtown wasn't somewhere that people were frequenting, and everybody working from home in that area, especially with the city and the county. So it was probably, they were all challenged as we all were, but that one was a bigger revenue challenge, but super low overhead. So kind of worked out.
Good. Okay, good. And so being in a market of that size, I would imagine that staffing for 4 restaurants and a catering division can be a challenge at times.
It can be. It didn't used to be, with being in a college town with Texas A&M, and then Glenn also has a huge presence here. 12 years ago when we opened Shipwreck, and even 15, 16 years when I had Bennigan's, you were selecting between, which electrical engineer or chemical engineer you wanted to be your dishwasher kind of thing. There was a line out the door almost every beginning of the semester. Everybody wanted a job. And we've gone to that to kind of what you see across the country in some regards. Nobody walking in the door, really having to go out and find folks, so to speak. but being leery of the fact that it's a small town and you can't go, snake other people's employees and things like that. But we work really close together as independent restaurants in Bryan College Station. Through COVID, we've done rewards programs together. So we share a lot of staff, a lot of information and that kind of thing. And I've really found, I guess, it's getting better. There's starting to be people walking in the door again to fill out an application, but it kind of seemed like for a while there, you just had to go out and find people, and using tools like Indeed and actually sending people that are interested, an invite, which is something, I've never had to do. Your Craigslist and your Facebooks and those kinds of things weren't working really well. It was just a big challenge. I would say kitchen staffing still a little bit bigger challenge than the students and the service side. And it's getting better. Seems to be getting better every day.
And obviously we know that the pandemic caused a lot of people to flee, but do you think that's the main reason that the staff labor pool shrunk up in your market?
I think it was really a threefold reason. I think you had consumer and employee confidence. People were scared. For us, it would be what I would call parent confidence. So what you had is a lot of kids coming to A&M and their parents are saying, hey, look, I know that I've told you have to work and pay for some of your school, but I just want you to be safe. So why don't you go down there, just concentrate on your school and, not work because we don't want you out in the public. Meanwhile, they're out in Northgate every Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. But I think that parent confidence had a really big, a really big part of it all for us from the student base. The cooks, particularly Hispanic cooks, they couldn't wait around and sit while we were closed. So a lot of them left the industry, which made the biggest challenge for us in kitchens. And then we've had, believe it or not, 7-8 restaurants have opened up through the pandemic. And, we all know how many people you have to staff to, open a new restaurant. And so all of it combined has been a challenge. What we're really left with is a pay rate in our kitchens that's 35-40% higher than what it used to be. We used to hire somebody in at $12 an hour, that kind of thing, for somebody that's somewhat qualified, and now every application says 15 right on the application. So it's a little bit more expensive and a little bit harder to get those kitchen folks.
And how was it for the catering? How did that go? Obviously with pandemic and then after pandemic.
Yeah, so catering was pretty easy because it all went away. It was by far our biggest revenue hit. We cater a ton to Texas A&M University, and even up until recently, and just a couple of weeks ago with Omicron, they canceled 100% of all catering, all interaction, all meetings. Sent people that could work from home to work from home, all that kind of thing. So catering kind of dried up at the same time of staffing. And so it really hasn't been a problem. We drive all our catering through 3 restaurants, and we have, 2 or 3 people that work on that staff. And then we fill in with all of our current employees. And when we did get catering, and there were some weddings and there were a few things, we had the staff because the restaurants were at a lower occupancy. So never really affected our catering as far as labor goes, but the revenues were a total loss.
Is that starting to come back?
It is. It's contingent on A&M. Like I said, a couple of weeks ago, we had about $15,000 in catering that was canceled within a 2-week period. The weddings seem to be, coming along. People are just kind of moving forward. And being in Bryan College Station, I don't travel that much around the country, but there's definitely seems to be the semblance of people are over it, so to speak. So I think this last wave where we saw, some decreased revenues with Omicron wasn't for fear or people not going out. It was sheerly because so many people had it. At any given time, I think I knew 10 or 15 people my age, professionals that had it. And, there was that many people that I think that were, having to stay home in quarantine.
Well, it sounds like I think in Texas, at least, we're coming into our restaurant season, I call it, as we move into March, April, and May. And you're all set staff wise for that and promotion wise?
Yeah, we're pretty good. You don't have a what I'd call a bench. That's the big thing. With revenues decreased, you didn't want to go out and hire extra people. So we're still, we're running our kitchens tighter than we ever have, which is a great thing.
Right.
I would have thought in my career that, we could not possibly run at some of the efficiencies that we've learned to run on, which is one of the positives if you're looking for positives. But you don't have a bench. And then you have that, where somebody used to feel a little bad, maybe have the sniffles and give you a call and you would say, either go to the doctor or come on into work. And, that's been gone and I don't know if it'll ever be back. So you have to make those decisions of if you say you have a headache or you say you don't feel right, then you don't come to work. So that's where the biggest challenge is, I think, just having depth. So we're getting back to that and going into such a busy season. People in a college town always think that, football season is going to be the biggest, and it is big for those home game weekends, but nothing compared to the spring. It's really the big season here. So we're adequately staffed, but we need to get that bench back and have a little bit more depth.
Yeah, I totally agree with that concept. Now, are all your restaurants, not including catering, but the actual restaurants, are they all lunch and dinner 7 days?
So pre-COVID, the only restaurant that was closed any day was the one I'm sitting in, Amico Nave, was closed on Sundays. All the hours at, other than Shipwreck has the same normal hours. We opened back up at the 25% capacity with those same hours. But we've changed them. We don't open at lunchtime anymore here at Amico's. And we've changed our hours in downtown a little bit, closing on Monday nights and not opening as early for breakfast during the week. And those were just those periods that, used to be, break even, if you will. I mean, it's kind of, the thought was you got cooks there anyway. There's enough people are going to come through the door. You'll have good days, you'll have bad days. And when your occupancy went down, that was the hardest hit areas. I mean, you were quite frankly going the wrong direction during those hours. And it's always a challenge to get those hours back. I mean, once you've had a restaurant closed at lunches, all of a sudden you open up lunches and it's not like people are, they've formed that habit. So we've done some things that we host Lions clubs and Rotary clubs and things like that at our Amico Nave restaurant during the week, and take on a little bit more catering when we can as well during the daytime. So I don't know that we'll go back to full hours at Amico's, and we're, still pretty happy at Third on Main with the revenues we're doing based on the hours we're open.
Well, and I noticed you were doing before, like crawfish events and things of that nature at Shipwreck. Can you get back to that?
So that's one of the highlights of my life, becoming an old man, is we do crawfish, and we do a ton of crawfish. This is super early in the season. I have this love-hate relationship with crawfish. They're available, they're not available, they're all dead, they're super high price, but we do start them. We go full blown in March, where we're doing them Tuesday through Saturdays. But we used to do these giant offsite crawfish bowls, 1,500, 2,000 pounds. We would do probably 20, 25 of them a year, 18-foot trailer, giant rigs. And I sold all of that last year to the guy that actually supplies my crawfish. But the crawfish in the restaurant, it's just crazy. The demand is so high. It's a different world for crawfish than it was 10 years ago, for sure.
And that starts very soon, right?
Well, the phone starts ringing, I mean, sometimes even before Christmas, but we started them in theory 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, but it's hit or miss. Like, some days you get them, some days you don't. This cold weather and cold snap, they weren't available. So it's kind of a check the website, check our Facebook page situation until probably, hopefully the beginning of March, but it's usually mid-March when they're in season.
And like a lot of Texas towns, I'm assuming that Bryan College Station has a lot of different festivals and outdoor events, community-wise, coming up from now until it gets too hot to go outside.
Right. Yeah, crazy amounts. A lot of, we have the fire school here, which kicks up really heavy in the spring. It goes into the summer. So many events through Texas A&M, including the obvious Parents Weekend for us, graduation weekends, and for Texas Aggies, getting an Aggie class ring is a really, really big deal and great for restaurateurs. So you have a couple of different ring day weekends, which is almost as busy as a graduation weekend. And then there's just more people moving around, more events. I think a little bit less in the sports situation for younger kids. So you have families that are out, typically not traveling as much, with the exception of, spring break. We get a little slowdown, but not a whole bunch.
Is when you think about what you have in front of you now, are you looking for deals to expand, or do you want to grow outside of College Stations, or do you just like where you are and what you have?
I like where I am right now. This is all to, speak freely. It's taken a lot of the fun out of it. It's I'm not sure that the challenges are as much greater as they seem, but they seem that way. And so, where we had plans or might have had plans to continue with expansion, I think until this stuff just all blows over, and we kind of get back to the same world, before we would look at any kind of expansions. We did one crazy thing during COVID, and I look back at all the crazy things, but we actually established a food truck, a complete custom menu, and ran it behind a new axe throwing venue here in town called BCS Axe House. And we didn't operate it like a food truck. We actually operated it behind the business, where the servers came out and got the food off the food truck. If you had ever told me I would own
like a kitchen.
Yeah, it was a mobile kitchen. And if you'd ever told me I'd own one, I would have said you were just crazy.
Now, were you behind the building where the axes could miss and come at the truck?
Yeah, I mean, liquor licenses and axe throwing, what could possibly go wrong? Let's put it to you this way: the indemnification from the attorneys was long and thorough before we started that, and it worked out great for several months. It kept my staff busy. We had guys on the truck, and kept me busier than I'd ever been in my life between that and just COVID in general and all the crazy things. So now I have a food truck sitting right outside the door here.
What's it called?
So, well, it was BCS Axe House, and then it was powered by Third on Main Kitchen. So we had our logo on their stuff, and then we created a kind of a custom menu from some of the items we do there. The food truck says Blake Steaks on the side. Blake was a friend of mine.
I know Blake Steaks.
Yeah, Blake Zeitman. Actually, he was the I think he's still current president of the Texas Restaurant Association here.
Yes. There of the one in the College Station.
Yeah, he just opened Zeitman's grocery store downtown. So I got to give him some capital to get started when I bought his food truck, and now if anybody out there is looking for one, they should look me up.
Yeah. The good thing, food trucks are like for that use, and there's a concept actually called Truck Yard.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's Dallas and a couple in Dallas, and I know there's one here, and they just have an area for food trucks,
Yep.
But if you had told me at any point in my career while I was operating that, hey, just so you know, there's going to be a concept centered around axe throwing, I think I would have gotten out of it a lot sooner.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, darts can be dangerous.
Yeah. Well, we were doing some crazy things, anything to generate revenues, and that worked out good for a few months.
Now, are you doing more to go since the pandemic? Have you all adjusted there?
I think that that's kind of adjusted itself. Yes, still more than we did before, but not by leaps and bounds. I'm not a big third-party user. Those guys are, do a great job and offer something for some restaurants, but for us, not having that depth in the kitchen and being able to run so efficiently, we kind of found that some of those and some of that business that you're giving away a good percentage of was just making it to where we might need another cook versus, the economics of, hey, we're running this thing with, just the basics, and it didn't make a lot of sense for us. So we don't do a lot with third party, which I know is big, but has worked out, I think, in our favor.
But you were doing the curbside?
Oh yeah. Well, I'll tell you, when we were closed down, we tried a couple of things. Like I said, downtown was probably the most conducive restaurant because of the menu to take out and pick up. But with downtown, it just was dead. It was like a ghost town.
Right.
And seafood and Italian food aren't your big ones for going out and picking up. So we did crazy stuff. We did crawfish boils, drive-throughs with 3 lanes, and sold 2,000 pounds of crawfish. We sold 150 lasagna meals one day, and then 120 another baked pasta dish another day. We did Easter brunch in a box and made 100 Easter brunches that people could take home and cook. So we were just doing crazy, anything we could do to throw at it, keep our managers working. And
Yeah. Did you do the turkeys?
We didn't do turkeys, but we did just about everything else.
So you mentioned earlier in our conversation that there is coming or has been 8 new restaurants open in the area.
Oh yeah, for sure. Some you're probably familiar with: Toasted Yolk, Snooze. They're opening a Mexican, one of the big Mexican food places. I can't think. Papacito's competitor. Trying to remember the name of.
Escalante's, maybe.
No, it's you'd know it if you heard it. I would say there's another Broken Egg that opened up. So breakfast places have been pretty prevalent. Two other Italian restaurants, and it doesn't seem like anybody's kind of slowing down growth. I don't know what you guys see out in the national chains, but not the type of growth slowdown I would have expected.
There was a slowdown in January, but now there's no, that's nationwide.
Sure.
That's according to the NRM. But it seems, again, weather, easing of cases, easing of hospitalizations, relaxation of mandates, everybody's starting to dip their toes back into it. But so if you knew somebody opening, well, let me ask this first. So of your 3 restaurants are 3 distinctly different bill of fares, menus?
Completely different.
Okay. And did you drive all the menu development, or?
I did. I don't really consider myself a chef, even when asked to do things in town. They get a lot of local chefs to do things. I always kind of bow out. I would say I don't necessarily have all the knowledge and talk the talk like my local friends that are great chefs. But I can develop just about any menu that we've come across so far. So that's a fun part of it.
That is the fun part of it. And then you come up with the idea, and then you have somebody cook it, and you go, too much, not enough.
Yeah. So in the catering, so our Admiral Catering is a completely separate. I mean, it's a DBA under one of our restaurants from a business standpoint, but from a marketing standpoint is a completely different business. So people are now, and when we started off, we branded ourselves with the restaurants, and then had a clear path to kind of unbrand it. And the whole purpose was, people would say, and I know all restaurants get this, either one, hey, I didn't know you catered, and some restaurants do and some restaurants don't. Or, I would have used you, but I didn't want seafood, or I didn't want Italian. And so, and it's kind of weird for you to go, well, we can do anything kind of thing. And so we branded Admiral Catering. So what we get a lot of is, people that have no idea that they're calling a restaurateur that owns 3 restaurants. So we have a completely custom catering menu, and we got to try a lot of really cool and fun things out as we did custom menus over the years. And so we've incorporated a lot of that stuff into either Third on Main Kitchen or, into restaurant updates and things on our restaurant. Somebody will ask you to do jambalaya for 300 people, and you're like, of course we do that. And then you go figure out how to do jambalaya for 300 people. On that particular occasion, we made jambalaya for 75 people and set up with the homeless shelter here because, things don't extrapolate the way, you can make a good old pot of jambalaya, but making it for 300. So anytime we do that, we don't risk messing that up. So we set up, it was 75 to 100 people. We set up at the homeless shelter to deliver it to them. And we made it as a test run and then took it to them. And then all of a sudden, in your tool chest, you've got jambalaya for 300 or, 400 kind of thing. So that's been a good way to challenge us to do development. And we've done some crazy things. I mean, everything from, jambalaya to, creating Hawaiian theme parties to pretty much anything anybody dreams up. They'll ask if we do it. We always say yes.
And you cook it from scratch for the catering event, and then the things that you like, you pull aside and look at for a menu item for one of the 3.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did a spicy pulled pork that we developed through catering and would do on a pretty large scale. And so we opened Third on Main. I don't know where I got the idea, but we do a homemade super savory cornbread pancake. I mean, they're just to die for. And that was just taking a cornbread recipe that we had done for catering that was really, really good, and changing it into a pancake, which is a different recipe, but some of the same things. And then I was like, man, why don't we take this pulled pork and do that down there? So we have cornbread pancakes with spicy house-made pulled pork. And then we do a green chili queso for catering that we didn't do in the restaurants. So we brought that down there. You pour that on top and then 2 eggs over easy, and you have the morning after, which probably makes up 30% of the sales in the restaurant. It's the best thing you've ever. What's that?
What time do you close tonight?
Yeah, I'm telling you, it is the best combination of breakfast foods I think ever.
I have a marketing question. So when we were shutting down and you were coming up with all the ideas of the lasagna, the crawfish, did you go traditional marketing and compared to what you're doing now or non-pandemic times, how did you get the word out of what you were doing?
Right. So, I mean, social media was so much better than it had ever been during the pandemic, and especially in a small town with so many businesses closed and so many people at home and bored. So, I mean, I don't think you get that type of bang for your buck generally out of social media. But we got a lot of PR from the local media on a lot of the things that we did, especially teaming up with other restaurants and a program called Feed It Forward that we started. And so people were watching. The other thing is this is a community, a very, very awesome community. And the outpouring of support was fairly crazy. People were looking for ways to support their local restaurants, from, hey, can I buy $1,000 in gift cards, to we're going to pay you for this event that we're having. And if we don't have it, then you'll just hold on to it until we have it again. Just one of those, and as restaurateurs, we're givers, it's very difficult to accept any of that stuff. So one other thing we did is we came up with a cup, very, very cool cup. It actually looks like this cup here. And for all those people that were like, what can we do? What can we do? So we came up with this cup, and the base around it is when this was all done, we would have a pirate party. And so you could buy a pirate cup, had a little metal ticket in it, that was good for the party when we had it. And we sold 350 of them at, I think they were $35 or $40 a piece. And we had the pirate party, and it was huge. And so it was just a creative way to say, hey, if you want to help us out, there's a way to do it, but we're going to give it all back. But we're going to use 100% of the proceeds to have this big party. So I think it was creativity that really drove during the pandemic. And that's, that's what I find, in particularly this town, but any town, is, the best thing is getting outside of the four walls and letting people associate your business with you and who you are.
So Wade, what was the biggest lesson you learned
I think
in it and out of it?
Yeah, I think personally, stability and patience. There's so many things Gary probably knows this about me. I mean, I was a pretty high-strung, control freak restaurant guy, as a lot of restaurateurs tend to be. It has to be perfect. It has to be the exact color, the exact size. You don't run out of things. You just have these standards that are just so incredibly high. And I don't think we've dropped our standards in quality or service to our guests, but there are so many things that you realize don't really make that big a difference. You go down and you buy a new bowl for the restaurant, and you have a black one, and the last time you went, you bought a white one, and this time they only have tan, and you just kind of roll with it, So I think from personally, civility and patience, and kind of really understanding people. And from a business standpoint, like I said, I mean, I would have told you it was absolutely impossible to run restaurants as efficiently as we were forced to run them, with less staff, with less resources. And, I think that as creating a team environment, and we always say we do, but we really brought our staff together to get through this together, and we still operate with that emotion and that I got your back. And when somebody can't come in and work, that used to be a really challenging day, and now everybody's kind of used to stepping up. I mean, it's not fun, but at least people know that, hey, we're taking care of people. We're obviously paying people way more than we used to. And then we decided to share the rewards when the PPP loans came through, and we told our managers, look, it's not going to cover our losses, but that's okay. But it is going to cover our overhead. And they all worked for, less money until those things came through. So we had a couple of huge contests with our managers. I say contests, a couple of huge bonus programs with them for them to become more independent, for them to have more ownership in their areas. And it worked huge. And it's something I think walking around looking for things wrong is the restaurant world, or the old restaurant world. And certainly was for me. And I think I've changed that to walking around looking for the positives, because that's how you keep people these days. Money's not going to do it. They have to love where they work, and they have to know that you have that huge respect for them. And it makes a big difference.
Well, it certainly sounds like that you had some great ideas and had some great successes. And we just want to thank you so much for sharing those experiences and successes with us today. We certainly enjoyed having you on, and we do hope you come back and see us again when you open your next restaurant.
Yeah. Exactly.
But
and Gary will be there before closing tonight as well for the pancakes. So
yeah, I'm going to pick up my dogs and head that way.
But you do need to make a little road trip down here, because we can do breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And you're probably going to need.
I do. I haven't been anywhere. I need to get out and start traveling. But we want to thank all of our listeners and viewers for joining us today to talk to Wade. And we've been talking hospitality with Wade and the Recruiter guys. Everybody have a wonderful week. See you next time.